People often fail to realize the value of someone until that person is no longer there. It is a pattern that repeats throughout life. People take kindness for granted, assume loyalty is guaranteed, and believe that someone who was always there will never leave. But when that presence disappears, when the warmth, the support, and the unwavering dedication are gone, the weight of regret becomes unbearable. The truth is, people don't appreciate consistency until they experience its absence. They become so accustomed to having someone in their corner that they stop acknowledging the effort, the patience, the sacrifices. And then, when the realization hits, it is often too late. There is an undeniable power in walking away, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in silent recognition of one's worth. The moment you decide that you will no longer beg for appreciation, that you will no longer tolerate being taken for granted, everything changes. There is strength in detachment, a transformation that happens when you remove yourself from a space where you are not valued. The people who once dismissed you, who thought you would always be available, suddenly find themselves facing a void they never thought possible. They feel your absence, not just in the silence, but in the loss of what you once brought into their lives: stability, comfort, unwavering support. At first, they may not notice. They may assume you are just upset, that you will return as you always did. They may even believe that their absence in your life will not affect you. But time has a way of revealing the truth. The conversations they took for granted now feel like a missing piece of their day. The reassurance you provided, the way you always listened, the comfort of knowing someone genuinely cared. These things don't just fade away. They leave a gap, a sharp contrast between what was and what is. And when that realization settles in, it is no longer a question of pride or ego. It is the pain of losing something that cannot be replaced. People regret losing you, not because they suddenly changed, but because they never expected you to change. They never imagined that you would recognize your worth and choose yourself over them. That is where the power lies, not in proving your value to them, but in proving it to yourself. Because the moment you stop fighting for someone's attention, the moment you stop seeking their approval, they are forced to confront their own mistakes. They see the version of you that no longer waits, no longer pleads, no longer lingers in the background, hoping to be acknowledged. Instead, they see someone who has grown, who has flourished, who has found fulfillment outside of their validation. And that is when regret begins to consume them. They will look back and wonder how they let you slip away. They will replay conversations in their mind, moments where they dismissed you, times when they could have chosen to appreciate you but didn't. The guilt will weigh on them because they will know deep down that you didn't leave because you stopped caring. You left because they made you feel like you didn't matter. And nothing is more painful than realizing that the one person who truly cared is now the one person they can no longer reach. But by the time they come to this realization, you will be in a different place. A place where you no longer seek closure, no longer hold on to what was, no longer feel the need to prove anything, because growth changes everything. When you shift your focus from seeking validation to building yourself, you reach a level of strength that no amount of regret from others can shake. And at that point, whether they regret losing you or not, no longer matters, because you have already moved on. People often wonder why they were taken for granted, why someone they gave their heart and soul to could overlook their worth. The truth is, human nature often fails to recognize value when it is constantly available. Familiarity creates a dangerous illusion, making people believe that the things they have today will still be there tomorrow. When someone is always present, always forgiving, always understanding, they become an unshakable pillar in another person's life. And when something feels unshakable, people stop appreciating it. It's not that they never saw your value, it's that they assumed your value would always be there for them. They got comfortable, believing that no matter how they acted, no matter how much effort they stopped putting in, you would always stay. They assumed your kindness was infinite, your patience unbreakable, your loyalty unconditional. And so, they stopped trying. They stopped acknowledging the sacrifices you made, the emotional labor you invested, the love you gave so freely. They mistook your presence for permanence, and that was their biggest mistake. The sad reality is that people don't appreciate consistency until they no longer have it. They get used to your good morning texts, your words of encouragement, the way you always showed up even when they didn't ask. They get used to your selflessness, the way you prioritized them, the way you made them feel special without expecting anything in return. And because it was always there, they never thought about what life would be like without it. That is, until you decide that enough is enough. When you finally choose to step back, when you stop giving without receiving, when you no longer entertain one-sided efforts, the shift is undeniable. At first, they may not even notice. They may assume you are just upset, that this is temporary, that you will come back the moment they reach out, but time has a way of proving otherwise. The absence of your presence, your energy, your care, it doesn't just go unnoticed. It creates a void, a silence that speaks louder than words. And that's when the regret begins to set in, because now they have to face a reality where they no longer have the privilege of you. They have to live with the knowledge that the person who once prioritized them has now prioritized themselves. They start to miss the small things, the check-ins, the laughter, the effortless support. They realize that what they took for granted wasn't just your presence. It was the depth of your love, the rarity of your loyalty, the strength of your character. By the time they truly grasp what they have lost, you are no longer in the same place they left you. You have grown, healed, evolved. You have built a life that no longer revolves around proving your worth to someone who failed to see it in the first place. And in that moment, they will wish they had done things differently. They will wish they had appreciated you when they had the chance. But some regrets come too late, and some doors, once closed, are never meant to be reopened. The moment you decide to walk away is the moment everything changes. Not just for them, but for you. It is in that decision, in that quiet but powerful act of choosing yourself, that you reclaim the respect and dignity you were denied. There is no need for dramatic exits, no need for long explanations or pleas for them to understand. The most powerful statement you can make is in your absence. In the space where you once existed, they will feel the weight of what they have lost. At first, they may not react. They may assume you are simply going through a phase, that you will come back like you always did. They might even test the waters, sending small messages or checking in just enough to see if you are still within reach. But when you don't respond the way they expect, when you no longer react, when you no longer make yourself available, their confidence starts to fade. And that is when the realization begins to creep in. The absence of your energy, your care, your presence. It creates a silence they never anticipated. They start to notice the gaps, the missing pieces of their routine that were once effortlessly filled by you. The texts they once ignored are no longer there. The comfort of knowing someone was always thinking of them is gone. The space they never thought much about suddenly feels empty, and with that emptiness comes a feeling they were never prepared for: regret. Regret is a slow burn. It doesn't hit all at once. It starts with small moments, times when they go to share something with you, only to remember you are no longer there. Times when they need comfort, and the person who once provided it has moved on. The weight of their choices becomes heavier with each passing day. The excuses they told themselves, the justifications they made for not appreciating you, start to feel hollow. Because now, in your absence, they finally see the truth. But by the time they realize what they had, you have already stepped into a new version of yourself. A version that no longer seeks closure, that no longer holds on to what was, that no longer feels the need to prove anything. Because when you walk away, you don't just leave them behind. You leave behind the version of you that accepted less than you deserved. And that is where the true power lies. They will regret losing you, not because you have changed, but because you have grown into someone they no longer have access to. And when they finally come to that realization, they will understand that some losses are permanent. Some doors once closed do not reopen, and some people once lost are never meant to return. Transformation is the most powerful response to being taken for granted. When you shift your energy away from trying to prove your worth to someone who failed to see it, and instead invest that energy into becoming the best version of yourself, everything changes. Growth is not about making them regret losing you. It's about making yourself so strong, so fulfilled, that their absence no longer affects you. It's about stepping into a version of yourself that no longer waits, no longer begs, no longer seeks validation from those who never truly appreciated you in the first place. At first, this journey feels lonely. You may question whether you made the right decision, whether they will ever realize what they lost. But as time passes, you start to feel the shift. The more you focus on yourself, on your passions, on your self-worth, the more you realize that the love you were giving away so freely should have been given to yourself first. You start to build a life that is no longer centered around proving your value to someone else, but instead around recognizing your own. And as you grow, as you heal, something incredible happens. You stop wanting them to come back. The things that once hurt you start to lose their power. The memories that once made you miss them start to remind you why you left. The longing you once felt turns into gratitude for the lessons learned. You begin to attract new opportunities, new connections, new experiences that align with the person you are becoming. And the more you flourish, the more noticeable your absence becomes to those who once overlooked you. They start to see the transformation. They hear about your progress. They notice the confidence in your voice, the light in your eyes. And it hits them. You are no longer the person they thought they could take for granted. You are no longer waiting for their recognition, their apology, their attempt to make things right. You have moved on, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And that realization will haunt them, because they will see you thriving in a way they never expected. They will realize that their absence did not break you, it built you. That losing them was not your loss, but theirs. That the person they once dismissed is now someone they can only admire from a distance. They will regret not appreciating you when they had the chance, but by then, you will have outgrown the version of yourself that once needed them to see your worth. And that is the ultimate power, not in making them beg to come back, but in becoming someone who no longer needs them to. Regret is a slow and painful teacher. At first, they may try to convince themselves that your absence doesn't matter, that life will go on as it always has. They will distract themselves, occupy their mind with meaningless things, and tell themselves that you will come back eventually. But as time passes, as they witness your growth, as they see you thriving in ways they never imagined, the weight of their mistake will settle in. They will start to wonder what went wrong, what they could have done differently, and why they let someone so valuable slip away so easily. The truth is, people often believe they have unlimited chances. They assume that no matter how they act, no matter how little effort they put in, the person who loved them will always be there. They convince themselves that they can come back whenever they want, that an apology, a few words, or a simple gesture will be enough to fix the damage they caused. But life doesn't work that way. People don't wait forever. And the moment they realize that you have truly moved on, that you no longer need their validation, that you are no longer standing at the door they once walked out of, is the moment regret consumes them. They will replay the past over and over again, trying to pinpoint the moment they lost you for good. Was it when they ignored your efforts? Was it when they assumed you would always be there? Was it when they failed to match the love and loyalty you gave so freely? The answers will come too late, because by the time they recognize your worth, you will have already recognized it yourself. And that is the difference. You will not be the same person they left behind. You will not be waiting for their return. You will have built a life that no longer revolves around them, a mindset that no longer craves their approval. And that realization will hit them harder than anything else. They will see the person they once overlooked becoming someone they can no longer reach. They will try to reconnect, to find a way back into your life, but it will not be the same, because time changes everything. The door they once assumed would always be open has been locked, not out of bitterness, not out of revenge, but out of self-respect. And when they finally beg to come back, when they finally realize what they lost, the decision will be yours, not theirs. You will have the power they once took from you. And whether you choose to let them back in or walk away forever, one thing will be certain. They will regret losing you for the rest of their lives. But here's the most important part. You won't need their regret. You won't be waiting for their apology, their realization, their desperate attempt to undo the past. Because by the time they finally understand your worth, you will have already embraced it yourself. You will have already built a life so full, so rich, so deeply fulfilling, that their absence no longer feels like a loss, but a necessary step toward your growth. There is a profound strength in reaching the point where you no longer seek closure, where you no longer need an explanation, where their regret no longer holds any weight in your life. Because closure isn't found in their words, it's found in your healing. It's found in the way you rise above the pain, the way you channel every disappointment into self-improvement, the way you choose to move forward without looking back. And as you thrive, as you grow into the person you were always meant to be, they will watch from a distance. They will see a version of you they no longer have access to, a version that is independent, confident, and completely at peace. And that will be their greatest regret of all, not just losing you, but losing the chance to be part of the life you have built without them. So when they finally reach out, when they finally admit their mistake, when they finally beg to come back, the choice will be yours. Not out of desperation, not out of longing, but out of wisdom. Because you will know that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply smile, walk away, and never look back. Let their regret be their burden to carry. You, on the other hand, will have already moved on to something greater, something better, something that no longer includes them. And that is the ultimate victory, not in proving them wrong, not in making them regret, not in seeking revenge, but in rising so high that their absence becomes irrelevant. True strength is not in waiting for them to see your worth, but in recognizing it yourself and never settling for less again. You will no longer look back, wondering what could have been. You will no longer replay the moments where you gave too much and received too little. You will no longer carry the weight of their neglect, because you have stepped into a new chapter, one where your happiness is not dependent on their presence, their validation, or their regret. They will remember you as the one who gave endlessly, who loved deeply, who cared without hesitation. And now, they will also remember you as the one they lost forever. They will see you thriving, glowing, becoming everything they failed to cherish, and they will realize too late that you were irreplaceable. But by then, you will be long gone. You will be building a future that is filled with people who recognize your worth from the start. People who don't need to lose you to appreciate you. People who see your value not as something to be taken for granted, but as something to be cherished. So let them regret, let them wish, let them hope for a second chance. But you will have already moved on to a life that no longer includes them. Because the greatest power you will ever hold is the ability to walk away and never look back. And as you walk forward, you will realize something even more powerful. You never needed them to see your worth. You never needed their recognition, their apology, or their regret to validate who you are. Because your value was never determined by how they treated you. It was always within you. It was always yours. The journey of healing is not about proving a point to those who let you down. It is not about waiting for them to regret their choices or hoping they realize what they lost. The true journey is about rediscovering yourself, about reclaiming your happiness, about building a life that is whole, fulfilling, and free from those who never truly deserved you. And that life, the one where you have found peace, where you have surrounded yourself with people who appreciate you, where you have stepped into your full potential, is the life they will never be a part of again. That is their regret to live with, not yours. Because the past no longer defines you, the pain no longer controls you. Their absence no longer weakens you. Instead, you have transformed every disappointment into strength, every heartbreak into wisdom, every setback into an opportunity for growth. And that is where true freedom lies, not in seeking closure, not in proving anything, but in living so fully, so boldly, so unapologetically that their regret becomes nothing more than a distant memory. So keep moving forward, keep thriving, keep becoming the person you were always meant to be. Because the best thing you will ever do is outgrow the version of yourself that once waited for them to see your worth. And the most beautiful part? You no longer need them to. At this point, you have stepped into a version of yourself that no longer lingers in the past, no longer questions what went wrong, and no longer seeks validation from those who failed to see your worth. You have become someone who is whole on your own, someone who understands that real love, real appreciation, and real connection should never have to be begged for. Their regret is now a burden they must carry, not a wound you must heal from. They will replay the moments they overlooked you, the times they dismissed your value, and the countless opportunities they had to do better. They will realize that you were the one who always showed up, the one who gave without expecting, the one who loved unconditionally, and they let that slip away. But their regret is no longer your concern. Their longing, their second thoughts, their sudden realizations, they are all too late. Because you have stepped into a future that is brighter, stronger, and more fulfilling than anything you ever experienced with them. You have built a life where you are surrounded by people who don't need to lose you to appreciate you. People who cherish you from the start, who recognize your value without having to be taught a painful lesson. And that is the beauty of true growth. It is not about proving anything to anyone else. It is about reaching a place where their absence does not hurt, where their regret does not matter, where their return is no longer something you even consider, because you have found peace, you have found strength, you have found a life that no longer includes them. And in the end, that is the most powerful thing of all. But the real victory isn't in their regret, it isn't in their longing, their realization, or their desperate attempts to make things right. The real victory is in your freedom, the freedom from the pain they caused, the self-doubt they planted, the endless cycle of proving your worth to someone who never truly valued you. You no longer need closure because you've already given it to yourself. You no longer need an apology because you've made peace with the past. You no longer need them to see your worth because you have embraced it fully, unapologetically, and without hesitation. The truth is, you were never the one who lost in this situation. You were never the one who should have felt unworthy, unappreciated, or overlooked. You were the blessing they failed to recognize. You were the light they took for granted. You were the one thing in their life that was real. And now they have to live with the fact that they lost you forever. But you are no longer looking back. You are no longer holding on to the hope that they will change, that they will finally understand, that they will come back with the love and appreciation you always deserved, because you have stepped into a new reality, one where your happiness is no longer tied to their presence, where your confidence no longer depends on their approval, where your peace is no longer disturbed by their absence. And as you walk forward, with your head held high, with a heart full of self-love, with a life filled with new opportunities and new connections, you will realize the greatest truth of all. You never needed them to regret losing you because you never truly lost anything. They did. And that is the final truth. While they sit with their regret, while they replay every mistake, every missed opportunity, every moment they took you for granted, you will be too busy living the life you were always meant to live. A life filled with purpose, joy, and love that is given freely by those who truly see you, truly value you, and never need to lose you to realize your worth. You are no longer bound by the past, no longer waiting for them to wake up and see what they lost, no longer hoping for a moment of redemption that no longer serves you, because you have grown beyond them. You have risen above the pain, the disappointment, and the heartbreak. You have transformed every moment of being unappreciated into fuel for your own success, your own happiness, your own greatness. And that is what truly separates you from them. While they are stuck in the past, drowning in the weight of their own regret, you are soaring toward a future so bright, so full, so powerful, that they are nothing more than a distant memory. So let them regret, let them wish, let them ache for another chance. But you will never look back. Because looking back would only slow you down. Looking back would mean giving energy to something that no longer serves you, to someone who no longer holds a place in your journey, and you have come too far, grown too much, and built too strong of a future to ever entertain the past again. You see, real power isn't in revenge. It isn't in making them beg or in watching them suffer through their regrets. Real power is in your ability to walk away with grace, to move forward without resentment, to let go without hesitation. Because that is when you truly win, not when they finally see your worth, but when you no longer need them to. And as you move forward, embracing the incredible person you have become, you will realize something even more profound. Your happiness was never meant to be tied to them. Your success was never meant to be shared with them. Your love, your energy, your kindness, it was always meant for someone who would cherish it, nurture it, and never take it for granted. So let this be the final chapter in a story that no longer belongs to them. Let this be the moment where you close the door, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with absolute certainty that you are walking towards something better. Because the truth is, you were never meant to stay in a place where you weren't valued. You were never meant to wait for someone to realize your worth. You were always meant to rise, to thrive, and to step into the life that was waiting for you all along. And as for them, they will live with their regret, but you will live with freedom.